Hello, my name is Crazy Owl, and in today's video, I'm going to be showing you the best method for planning your build. And you don't have to use this method. There are plenty of other ways out there, but this is my personal preference, and I personally think it's a pretty good option. So right now, I'm in this village that I'm working on in creative mode, and I only have 3 houses in here, but up this hill, I've cleared out a pretty big area where we can build a farmhouse. And I've decided that while building this, I'm also going to do a tutorial on how I plan my builds. We're going to need a couple different colors of wool and also some sort of block palette. And you can put the wool down first and then do the block palette if you're not really sure what you want for your block palette. But I'm going to pick my block palette right away, and it's not too complicated. I'm just going to use some diorite, some granite, and some oak wood. To start out the planning process, pick one color of wool. Usually you'll want a square or a rectangle as your base shape, so I will go with that. You could also use a circle or a triangle technically, but those shapes aren't as easy to use in Minecraft. Once you have your basic shape, you need to start thinking about what the purpose of your build is and what you might want attached to that. So an example of what I'm doing is on this build, which is a shepherd, there is a little part that comes off, and that's some fabric storage. And there's also a sheep pen on the opposite side and a thing over the door just to add some more depth to the build. And on some of the other builds, there's just a storage area outside, or on this one there's a cow pen, and it can really be anything that you add on. Back on this build, I think I want some sort of storage or something like that area over here, so maybe I'll have that more open and not quite a closed area. On this side, I think I might want maybe a chicken coop would be interesting to add. And then on this side, I'll add some sort of tool storage shed. And now that we have the 2-dimensional plan, or I guess it's kind of 3D, but the flat plan on the ground, we gotta start planning out the height, because that's another important dimension of the build, and people might not notice it as much as they notice the normal floor plan of the build, but it is just as important. So I'm going to build this side like 5 or 6 blocks high. And now that we have this main shape filled out, I'm going to add this one. And the chicken coop doesn't have to be very tall. I think I'm only gonna make this 3 blocks high because you don't need much height for chickens. I'm also gonna change it right now and add another 2 blocks of depth to this so that the chickens have more room, because it wasn't very big before. And then finally, this last part, I'm just gonna do like 4 blocks high. And now we have our basic plan, and some people would plan out the roof as well, or plan out the different block changes. If you're less confident in your skills, you might want to do that, but especially if you're building in survival, that would take a lot more wool. And if you are building in survival, I'd also like to suggest planning out your builds in creative first, even though I know that a lot of people do already do this. Because we already have our block palette planned out, I'm just gonna take those out and we can start to put them into our build. And before you actually start putting them in, you also have to think about where you're going to put these blocks. For example, I'm going to put the oak, I'm going to make it the corners and also the outline of the roof, and I think I'll also fill in the roof with it once that comes. But for the diorite and granite, instead of like doing some parts with granite and some parts with diorite, I'm actually going to have the granite kind of gradient into the diorite. So I'm going to do a time lapse for the rest of this because changing the blocks will kind of take a long time, and then I will come back and we can do a final reveal and maybe some interior planning tips as well. finished with the replacing of the blocks, and we have all of our walls and our roof put in, and it looks decent, but obviously there are still some things both on the outside and the inside that we need to do to it. First of all, this roof is looking a little bit boring. We can start out by adding some little windows on the top. That'll already help out a little bit. We can also extend the windows down a little bit, make them 2 blocks tall. And now that we have windows on our roof, we'll also need windows and doors in the actual building, of course. So I'm going to put my door here, which is kind of on the side. Often I'll have, for example, in this build, something coming off of the build that overhangs the door, but on this build there are so many other things coming off of it that I decided not to, so I'm just putting the door in the side of the wall and some windows on the wall with it. If you have a certain amount of windows that are kind of spread apart, you could also use some trapdoors as like shutters, but I'm not going to do that for this build because the windows are kind of close together. This part of the build, I was originally going to make it a tool shed, but I've decided I'm just going to make it another part of the house that's connected to the inside. Maybe it will be storage, but I'm not going to disconnect it. I can fit another window on this wall. And then right here is a bit of a chicken coop. So I'm actually going to get a fence gate out and make that the door. And there is walls on the inside of here. And we can do the rest of the chicken coop later. I don't want any windows here because it's under the overhang, so that'll be it for exterior windows. And now we can throw in a couple other decorations on the outside, such as adding some coarse dirt and path blocks under that second overhang and putting some barrels there so that it can be a bit of a storage area, which I think was what I was originally doing with it. Like I just did, make sure that you can't see the dirt blocks under where the path blocks are revealing. It just makes it look better and makes it look like the build would be more structurally sound. There aren't too many barrels in this spot here. Maybe I'll throw another one up against that and another one here. There's not too much I really needed to do. And maybe I'll also throw a couple hay bales. And let's just throw a lantern on the barrel. And we're done with this little area. Quickly, we can grab some leaves, throw down a couple bushes just in the corners and stuff. And now we're pretty much done with the outside. We will add some bone meal later, but I will be adding a farm, a really big farm in this area, which I'm not going to do on camera, but you will see it in the final reveal. I just think it would be pretty boring to watch me place probably hundreds of seeds and wait for them to grow. And then I'll do bone meal while I'm also off camera, but before we do that, I should probably do the interior. And first, we're gonna do the inside of this little chicken coop because, well, it's only half outside, so and the chickens will probably need a hay bale, even though they don't even eat wheat, just as some sort of food source for them. And then also, I'm going to give them a cauldron for water. And I know they wouldn't even really be able to reach a cauldron, but I don't really care. This doesn't have to be realistic. And I personally think these chickens should be given some windows. And I'm actually going to extend the area that they have access to. And then plop some lanterns on here. And also on top of the ceiling. And I'm gonna fill the rest of this spot in, or at least a little more of it, with coarse dirt and hay bales and paths, because I think there should be more of those in this area. And there we go. And now we have a little area for the chickens. And before we get to the actual interior of the build, we can just throw some chickens in the chicken coop. Not too many. Let's throw 3 in. They shouldn't be able to escape, so now we can start on the interior of the house. Now, obviously this video is mostly on planning, and clearly there isn't much planning involved in an interior, but if you do want to know how I do my interiors, then continue watching. If you have your own way of doing them, go ahead and click off the video. If you're still here now, you've surely given me a good enough amount of watch time. But there is a little bit of planning that should go into it. Before you start actually building, think about what you want to put and where you want to put it. For example, there is this indent in the wall here, and if you wanted a fireplace, which I don't think I do want, but in case you did, that'd be a great place to put it. Now there are some holes in the walls and stuff, so before we actually get into doing anything, I'm going to clean up the ceiling and the walls. So I cleaned out the interior of the house, made the ceiling look a lot nicer, and I also put in a floor, which is just a checkerboard pattern of oak logs and oak planks. And I would have used something like spruce or even a completely different block, and I could have used granite or diorite, but I wanted to make sure I was using a block that wasn't in the walls but was still used elsewhere in the build. So I used my roof/ceiling palette color. And I'm not sure what I exactly want to put in this build, but what I do know is that I have to put a composter somewhere. It would be smart to have some sort of kitchen, and I also think I'd like a sort of storage area. And I think because the farm fields are over here, maybe I want the composters on this wall, the kitchen on this wall, and the storage back here. And then on this side over here, I might have more storage. Or you know what, maybe I'll just throw a stack of hay bales here. Honestly, that looks fine to me. Now for the storage area, I kind of want to be creative with this. I'm going to put some barrels up here, grab some oak fences, have something to support the barrels. And then I'll throw 2 more barrels down here and a lantern on that. And there we have a cute little storage area. For the composter area, there's not really anything specifically related to composters, but I could put 2 of them there, and then I can take some polished diorite, which is a block used a lot in the build, throw a lantern here, and then maybe because this is a farm, we throw some like potted plants of sorts in the corners. And finally, we have to make the kitchen. And a kitchen is actually something I make quite a bit in Minecraft, so this isn't going to be too hard to do. I think I want 3 smokers. No, just 2 smokers. And then I'm going to put a cauldron 1 block away from them as a sort of sink. And then I'm going to use the same diorite polished stairs as before as a counter block. And I'm going to put 1 more little bush tree in the corner. And I kind of like that, so I'm just going to throw a lantern here, and we can put maybe another painting on this wall. I don't think that's gonna work with the size of this wall. We can put some shelving on this wall, actually. And then I think that's all we need for the shelves on the walls. Maybe use some fence posts to hang a lantern in the center of the room, just as some sort of centerpiece. And I think that's our farmer's room complete. And here we have it. This is the final project. I made a path connecting the main road to the front of the house, and I made a massive farm field, and I spammed bone meal everywhere. Well guys, that is going to be it for today. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please make sure to like and subscribe. It really means a lot, and we only have 35 subscribers right now, but maybe we could get to 40 or even 50 in not too long. If you want to see another video like this with planning or even just a different part of builds or another tutorial like last week's, let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, have a great day and see you in the next one.